What is going on, Panther Lair? We are back talking about the Pittsburgh Panthers' performance this past week in the ACC Tournament. Now, I am going to break down some game footage, obviously, from these two games. However, I also want to apply the lens that I'm going to focus on some of the seniors that are not going to be playing in a Pitt uniform going forward, as I'm not sure I'm going to kind of do a series on what will the Panthers be missing that I may have done in the past. So with that said here, going to start with Damarco Minor. Anyone who's read my stuff over the course of the year know that I probably haven't said, I don't know, like a bunch of really great things about him. I think he's a solid player. I think he was a reasonable pickup. My main thing was, in this offense, the ability to find the roll man is pretty important, and I don't think that he was a step even laterally in terms of what Jalen Lowe was in terms of a pick and roll ball handler, being able to understand how the defense was reacting to that, finding the open man. Wasn't really that guy. No big deal. No just Intrasitis kind of settled more into that role. Maybe Amari Witherspoon could be that with enough time. So, it kind of was split a little bit more than it was last season. That said, wasn't able to step into in that way. Also, most of his shots were three-pointers, and I think I called this out within the last couple of weeks. I mean, he took 5.3 triples a game, and he only took 7.2 shots, and he shot 31.6% from deep, which is a career high for him collegiately, but he finished his 4 years shooting 30.4% from distance, so not really a marksman. Throwing the fact a lot of those were off the bounce, although he did make those in a smaller sample at Oregon State. Throwing the fact that, hey, 6 feet tall is not exactly gigantic on a collegiate basketball court, and you can start to see why it's going to be hard for him to succeed as like a 40%, high 30% guy, but he took a lot of them from there. Now you could say, well, the offense required it, but I think there were other guys around who could have taken some of those, and I also think, to Minor's credit, that he could have done a little bit more, in the tape showed that in prior seasons he did, to the point where you wonder, like, why did you have to settle so much? That remains to be, seen. I guess we'll never know that answer. Also, from a point of attack defender, from kind of like that lead defender there, picking up the ball a lot of the times, really wasn't the point of attack pit bull that we saw from Jamarius Burton or Ishmael Leggett. Again, that could be a size thing. But in the game against Stanford, he certainly was a huge reason as to why the team was able to advance past that first round. So that's kind of where we're going to start. Now, the big thing was in their first meeting was just getting crushed by Abuko Corey off the dribble. No one on this roster is going to be able to stop him one-on-one. So I think a big piece of this was, if ball screens are used to not only send two guys, but these high ball screens, I think, work in the team's favor because it gives the help defenders so much more time to react to a guy coming downhill. It also allows, a higher kind of pickup or hedge, or to go to the ball here. And I think that they just met him immediately on the other side of the screen with Minor fighting over. Now, the guards on Pitt did a much better job fighting over these screens throughout the game, but credit to Corin, credit to a guy like Cialepa. They picked him up early and tried to just use their size to ride him towards the sideline, and that was pretty important, forcing an early turnover here. Also, I saw Jay Williams, or I heard Jay Williams on the broadcast, and I actually think, obviously, he knows a lot more basketball than I do. He's probably forgot more basketball than I'll ever know, but talked a little bit about directional force here. I don't mind when a guy's picking somebody up this high without the use of directional force, because no matter which way that a Corey goes, the defense is going to be a react. Now, if you want to shoot him off of to the left, and a lot of your defense is bent and loaded up to do that, that's fine. The problem is that Corey showed in the first meeting that all he has to do is make one crossover. He's going to probably beat that, and all of a sudden your defense is bent the wrong way, and now you're in a losing position. If this is where Minor was most comfortable picking him up, and he was just going to kind of be able to be optioned by either high ball screen, then that probably made the most sense, in my opinion. And it ended up working out pretty well. Corey finished with 14 points, far fewer than their first meeting. So here, one thing too, fights over, he tries to get skinny immediately, bumps through, but the hands come down. And if you remember watching this first game against them at the end of the regular season, Corey split these double teams quite a bit. And so to see a turnover here, just shortly after the one that we just watched, because they knew, hey, he's going to try to split these. Let's get our hands down here, try to just poke the ball away. I actually thought that was pretty good scouting along with you, because he tries to split those double teams. He doesn't want to keep stretching it. He's trying to go right through. So here we go again, not being screened. Again, I like that if you don't have to use directional force, then you don't have to. He's just hanging here, stepping over. This guy slips a little bit early, allows two. Corin's ready to meet him. Get the ball out of his hands, right? This is towards the end of the game, getting the ball out of his hands. So he forces it. Obviously, this is where Stanford wants to go, but he just plays him straight up, says, hey, no, I'm not going to get screened. I'm going to hold up well. Forces the ball to go to Benny Gieler, who would just rather shoot it, not dribble the ball right here. Tries to get it back, but just the denial here. This is huge. This is probably the best defensive possession that this guy's played and probably the most important and relevant to the Panthers season. And just goes into complete ball denial and forces Gieler, who is a good shooter, but far worse probably off the bounce from this distance, to have to make a decision. So, he ends up shooting this super deep three, highly contested. I mean, this is not the shot that I think the Cardinal want. Grazes the rim. Barry Dunning Jr., who's like Mr. Everything, ends up coming up with the ball. And in possession, this is kind of, I guess, the best and worst of Miner in terms of his offense. Again, I mean, this is a clean look, so this is like, there's really no one contesting this at all. But an off-the-bounce three, and then that contest comes from his left side late. Just don't think that probably was really much of a factor. I think the fact that Miner's a 30% shooter is more of a factor here. Good also, way to be on the spot here. Barry Dunning Jr. always seems to be everywhere. And then heads-up play by Makari Moore, who I actually think played some positive minutes here in the ACC tournament. If we're being pretty honest, they certainly weren't horrible. Takes Gieler off the dribble. That's going to make sense. This is a tough shot. Follows with it. And makes the layup here. And then we all know that Pitt wins the game. So overall, I'm not going to remember Miner's career as like a really big disappointment. I'm not going to remember it obviously as a big success. I think he played extremely hard. I think he took the role on as being a leader, just being here for 1 year. Kudos to him. Kudos to obviously what's going on in his personal life. I just feel like this is not really a great fit in terms of what the Panthers probably needed from a lead guard and from a guard who could shoot. Not to say that this guy deserved to come off the bench, but it just was a situation where I just don't think the fit was great. Played really hard, ended up putting together a couple good games. Didn't make a lot of shots down the stretch. I think I'll have it here in the article. Did not shoot well in the month of March, but did make some of the baskets count.